For over 70 years, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Marin has worked to inspire joy and justice in an imperfect world, sharing life's journey, celebrating many paths, and acting to make a difference. UU Marin celebrates people from all walks of life. No matter how you make your living or how you experience the sacred, no matter who you are, where you're from, or who you love, you are welcome here. If you're seeking open-hearted community, a place where you can have a real day-to-day impact in the world, and a space for the whole family to grow spiritually, come check out the church at the top of the hill. Come join UU Marin.
I was a scholarship kid at a fancy prep school in the peaceful, rolling countryside of northwestern Connecticut. The school was founded in 1890 by a Unitarian from Cincinnati, the brother of the man who some years later would become the 27th president of the country, William Howard Taft, whom you heard about last week. It was the Gilded Age, the era of the explosion of great wealth and fortune and of great wealth disparity. It was the era of fancy institutions catering to the rich, among them schools like mine. It was the era of noblesse oblige, the obligation of the entitled and privileged for social responsibility, which our school motto reflected. Non ut sibi ministratur, sed ut ministrat, not to be served, but to serve. 70 years after the school's founding, that sense of responsibility lived on. We had a monthly fast day when what was saved from feeding us growing boys went to feed the less fortunate. The school chaplain, with the help of one Mrs. Baldrich, the wife of a local industrialist, organized opportunities for students to serve. Those opportunities were my introduction to service. Among them, making regular visits to the state mental hospital high on a remote hilltop in Newtown, where we chatted with male inmates, played cards, took them for walks around the grounds, and tutoring underprivileged kids in nearby Waterbury, a gritty industrial city. Years later, it was participating in the social outreach efforts of my UU congregations, preparing meals at a halfway house for the unhoused in downtown Atlanta, renovating transitional homes for unhoused families, and more recently in Beaufort, South Carolina, helping to build a house for Habitat for Humanity, and delivering surplus food from supermarkets to church pantries and shelters for battered women and children. Second Helpings, the program was called. It was there, in direct contact with those receiving the food, that I began to feel something different in the act of serving others, in the dynamic of giving and receiving. I'm thinking particularly of a small black church in the rural hinterlands of Beaufort County, and the smiling faces of the entourage that awaited us at the appointed hour, lining up at the back of the truck, arms outstretched to accept the boxes of food we lowered down to them. The joy and gratitude in those smiles, the good-natured banter, the genuine connection. It was the same sensation, magnified, that I felt a few weeks ago at the Point Reyes Lighthouse Overlook, where I was working as a winter wildlife docent. I've told some of you about this already. Interpreting the scene for the many visitors I encountered in the few short hours I was there that afternoon, the whales, the birds, the landscape. A Mexican family examining a collection of whale-related show and tell items, the mother asking me to explain to her son slowly how a gray whale uses its baleen to extract krill and other small crustaceans from a massive mouthful of seawater. Their genuine appreciation. The elation of a young boy at the sight of two peregrines that emerged from their cliffside eyrie I did my school project on peregrines, he said, bouncing. Do you know they're the fastest animals on the planet? They can dive 300 miles an hour. He paused. Well, maybe 250. I checked it out when I got home. He was close. One was clocked at 246 miles an hour. The peregrines performed for us, swooping, tucking their wings and diving, stooping, birders call it. We watched in awe. Was that worth the price of admission? I asked his parents. Absolutely, they replied. The exclamations of surprise and joy from those peering through our spotting scope at a pair of great horned owls on the sheltered ledge of a nearby cliff, the female on their nest of sticks, the male standing guard beside her, his ear tufts flapping in the breeze. I see them, that's so cool. And from one, I need to get one of those scopes. I trained the scope on the rocks at the bottom of the cliff 500 feet below us, where black and white seabirds called murres rested from their deep underwater forays for fish. A young boy stepped up and looked. His face lit up when I told him they're related to puffins. At that, a retired couple from Missouri, standing right behind me, told me about their experience 50 plus years ago on the coast of Maine, working with a young National Audubon ornithologist who led a now famous reintroduction of Atlantic puffins to a rocky island several miles off the coast. I know Steve, I replied. In 1975, I invited him to bring his slideshow and talk to the summer camp nearby where I was the nature counselor. We savored the serendipity of the moment and turned to watching for whales, for visitors had begun to sight them. Keep an eye out for whale spouts, I'd told them as they arrived earlier in the afternoon. I've seen 4 so far, right down there, just a few yards beyond the lighthouse. One of them showed me its tail flukes. Now, in mid-afternoon, on that clear, warm day, we began to see more. The fence was lined with visitors, and one woman there was especially adept at spotting the small spouts of gray whales. Where are they? Others would ask. Out there toward the Farallones, about 1 fist below the horizon, she would say. And sure enough, there they were, one after another. There's one, someone would announce, pointing. There's another. An old geezer next to me remarked, those aren't whales. They're whitecaps. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I took him over to the railing where she was standing and pointed them out. Ah, he said, his face lighting up. By the end of the afternoon, the visitors and I had counted 97 spouts, several of them in pairs, a full-sized one and a smaller one, presumably mother and calf. People left elated. Among them, the old geezer who came up to me, looked me in the eye and said, do you know how many years I've tried to see a whale and haven't? I've been here, I've been all up and down the coast, I've been to the East Coast, and now I've seen one. Thank you. Like the people that morning at Drake's Beach, where I'd shown groups of people the elephant seal pups and told them of the strange, remarkable life history of the species. Families from all over the state, all over the country, Midwest, East Coast, from Europe, Germany, Norway, England, Spain. The same expressions of joy, awe, wonder, and gratitude. Thank you, over and over, handshakes. Thank you for your service. In childhood, I had heard the words from the New Testament, it is in giving that we receive. There on the lighthouse viewing platform, I felt it. I knew it in my body. By the end of the day, I was floating on a cloud of joy and gratitude, reflected back to me by the people I'd simply been helping to enjoy the wonders of the natural world. Years ago, a minister friend told me that God, for him, was the spark of recognition of interconnectedness with another person, another being, with the whole of creation. I realize now that I was seeing God in the faces of those who moments before had been strangers. A few days later, I heard an interview with Anne Lamott, our wise neighbor here in Marin. She said, "We cannot be fully human, cannot be whole, living solitary lives. We need others. We need community where, in helping to heal others, we ourselves are healed." That's what happened to me that glorious afternoon above the lighthouse.
Well, I did a short piece why I joined the Marin Church, but some of you, actually, some of the kids at the back, they're not there anymore, but maybe they'll be able to hear it. Because I thought, first of all, I'd tell you a little bit about the history, my history in the Unitarian Church. I was put in Unitarian Sunday school when I was 9. My parents had been in New York at first, so in a Moravian church. There was music, but that wasn't what they thought. So then they put me in the Episcopal church. That was too strict. And then they thought, well, they heard of this Unitarian church in my hometown of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And so that I could find out about the world's religions. They were somewhat upset afterward when I thought that after my studies, maybe I should become a Muslim. That was, and I was in the Bible Belt. Remember, this was Tennessee. This is, and this was really the Bible Belt. So even though this was a Unitarian, we're in Oak Ridge with 29,000 people had 39 churches in it. 7 Baptists, 3 Methodists, things like that. So by the time I was 12, everything changed, and I joined the Liberal Religious Youth. And nobody knows what the LRY is right now. I don't know what you do? So we used to, in fact, we thought about it so much that we'd go to conferences and we'd hold up our hands, we'd sing, "This liberal light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." And it all changed. There were no drugs or alcohol in those days in the church, and we had great parties. We had fabulous parties anyway, with lots of dancing, and we also traveled long distances to conferences. I mean, we traveled as much as 10 hours by bus. I ended up being the secretary of the Dixie Federation. Doesn't that sound awful? And it was over 6 states, the Unitarians. And then at 18, I attended a Quaker college and then became a Tibetan Buddhist and studied meditation. But just then, my younger daughter kept saying, "Mom, you need a community." And I thought, well, the Tibetan Buddhists I really love, but I didn't really have a community there. And I'd avoided the Unitarian Church because I'd done that. You know, that was finished. And however, I realized that the religion, with the Universalist Church now added, provided some spirituality, and it was really the only one where my spiritual beliefs would merge with my need to belong to a church that believed in putting the religious, their beliefs into practice. Then COVID came, and our minister at the time, who was Marcus, formed not only Zoom for the sermons, but he formed a small group of those of us that were alone, were single. And so that really was another positive check for me for the Unitarian Church. And 2 of my friends, the Jobs, who were in after COVID, convinced me to join the choir, saying, "Gosh, it's lots of fun." And they were really right. And that choir became part of my life. And I was talking to a black friend the other night, and I said, singing for the church and for our choir went from down here up to there, and he and I were sort of moving around. He said, "Yeah, that's what all the black churches feel. Song is spiritual." And then suddenly I had a stroke. So here I was in the choir, and then I had as a member, and then once again the church helped me out, financially from a special fund, and emotionally with visits and encouragement from its members. And by now, I feel part of a large family, one that I want to donate to and serve in ways that I can. I want to help UU Marin grow even more diverse. I want it to be more interactive with each other. I want to see more young people in the congregation having the same positive experiences that help me shape most of my moral convictions to make a better world for everybody. So even though I don't have much money, I'm adding extra to my pledge because I really feel it's worthwhile, because I want to build on it, and with a hope that we all do our part to make the world sort of a more kind and a better place, starting right now, right here, right at the top of our hill. So shalom to you and blessings to all of you. I love you, everyone.
If I could leave you with but one thing today, it would be to remember to see what we do here in this congregation through the eyes of children, of how they would want to interact with each other, to see that through their eyes. This week, Jews celebrated Passover, and we are still in the week of the unleavened bread. It is a time we remember the story of the Jewish people leaving Egypt and the bonds of slavery which had evolved to hold them there. Celebrating Pesach, or Passover, is one of my favorite things to do, because I get to experience a spiritual moment through my 5 senses, and it makes it so much more meaningful. Not only do we see the faces of the friends and family around the festive table and hear the songs that help us experience the emotions of the moment, but we touch the spring herbs and we hold the matzah, the bread that did not have a chance to rise as the people fled their slavery. And we dip our fingers into the grape juice and remove a drop for each of the plagues of the story and for each of the things that plague us today. And we smell the sweet apples and the spicy cinnamon that makes up the haroseth, which represents the bricks that built the pyramids. And most important to me, what makes this holiday so meaningful is that we taste not only delicious food, but the harshness of the horseradish and the salt water of tears that reminds us to break away from complacency and old habits and addictions, and that we will have to face hard realities and sadness to do this. But together with it all, it will bring us courage and support and joy. The Seder meal is a wonderful way to share a deep religious tradition with adults, and yet does not forget to tell the story in a way that children will grasp. It includes the perspective that children will understand. In a few months, I will retire from this position as Director of Family Ministries and end my career of professional ministry. Leaving professional ministry feels parallel to leaving Egypt at the end of the Seder, as we say, we are here today, and next year, we can only imagine where our journey will take us. In Hebrew, Egypt is Mitzrayim, and the root of the word comes from high walls. And it conjures up images of things that hold us in and keep us in bondage, those bad habits and addictions. Professional ministry has its high walls as well. Its code of ethics, its standards we hold ourselves to, and its support of a faith tradition with a vigor and a way of life that I'm ready to let go and walk from freely. But saying goodbye and leaving is something that I need to do at this time in my life, and it's bittersweet. I will end my journey here with the children and teens, and I will have more time with family and to focus on things that I have pushed aside. And yet I know that I have done good work together with you all to keep that prospective children in mind as we plan and executed our programs. My first time of experiencing engaging with kids was working at an outdoor education camp at the schools in San Mateo County. And there I learned to engage with play and to educate through games and songs and walks through nature. And once a week, I had an opportunity to take the kids to the coast and explore and observe the many wonders around us. And Dave is right, getting kids to look at elephant seals from the bluffs above the beach is an amazing way to see the world. We would sit and we would watch, and they would observe and they would find, and they would ask questions. And I would answer them, and then I would ask them questions to reflect on what they were seeing. It was a magical time. It was a time of seeing things through their eyes. It's very similar to what we do here. The Haggadah, which is the book that you use for the Seder service, includes a time when we point to 4 types of children and the questions that they have. One year, a family member brought to our Seder a version of these 4 types of children from the American Jewish World Service, an organization that works to realize human rights and end poverty throughout the world. And they took these 4 children that are traditional, like the wise one, who often asks, I want to know the meaning of why we do these things here, and changes it from a perspective of justice, which we teach so strongly here for our kids, to the activist child, the one who asks that we are taught about justice, how do we pursue justice? And we answer them by the way that we act with each other and how we are in our lives. And we empower them to seek pathways to advocate for the most vulnerable. And the child who asks, why bother knowing all these things, becomes the skeptical child in the ways of justice and says, how do we know that we're going to make a difference? And we tell them that we need you to be a part of what we're doing. And we encourage them that they need not solve the problem, but they need to do a piece that sets it in the right direction, and that ripples will come out from there, and that they don't need to complete the work, because justice happens when we all get involved. And the child who is seen as simple asks, what's this all about? And can be seen from ways of justice as being the indifferent child, who simply says, it's not my responsibility. And we need to persuade that child that responsibility cannot be shirked, and that we know that there is good and bad in the world. And actually, the opposite of what is good is indifference. And then there's the child who doesn't even know how to ask a question. And they see this from this perspective of justice as the uninformed child. And we engage to make that child feel comfortable and to share their stories and prompt them to see themselves as an inheritor of our people's legacy. We can all be a part of the magic that happens here with our kids and our teens. And we remember how to be a part by just what we do whenever we're in a beloved community. We share of our time and our talent and our treasure. And to give of time, it could be as simple as asking when there's a family event or an intergenerational congregational event to say, how can I help set up? How can I help clean up? And it can be as dedicated as realizing that we have an amazing sexual education program that we teach our children through all aspects of their lives. It's called Our Whole Lives, or OWL, O-W-L, OWL. And you can ask to become a teacher of OWL, where what we teach them is not just about human reproduction, it's about intimacy and good health and sensuality and good relationships. And of course, if you want to help out in the programs we do on Sunday morning, you can approach the Director of Family Ministries and get a background check, and also with their connection with you, feeling good, as that's a good connection, you can be that second adult in the classroom so that we can keep our kids safe. But what about resources? You all have talents, you all have skills, and some of those may be in the arts, some of them may be in building things, some of them may be in other aspects. And if you share them with me, I will keep them on a list for who's coming after me. And certainly approach the new director of family ministries and share of your talents as well. And of your treasure, well, we're in this time of pledging. And we need to remember that what we offer here is so much more than what they can find out in other communities. And that we provide a chance for them to reflect. We provide a chance for them to build spiritual tools that they can carry along in their medicine bag with them. There is a depth of life experience here that they don't get to exercise or reflect on when they're in just sports or arts or other communities. Being of service to our children and families here, we remember our mission. And it applies to our children as well. That we listen to what our kids want and how they want to participate as they share their life's journey. And we celebrate the different paths that they take. And we act to make a difference in their lives. There's an intensity to this commitment of working with youth. It means we need to move beyond what we think is best for the kids and be able to do that listening and hear and see through their eyes. So the story of the people leaving Egypt, Moses goes out after they leave Egypt and ends up climbing mountains, talking to God, bringing forth these guidelines on how to be in right relationship with community. And yes, there are moments where those stone tablets get broken and Moses has to trek back up the hill. And we certainly watched in our community how there are times when covenants can be broken and we need to do the hard work to come back together, because that's what we are, a covenantal community. And yet, I wonder what Moses felt standing at the Jordan River and knowing that he was not going to cross into the promised land with the children of Israel. Did he have hope and trust and faith that the people would remember? I have hope that you will remember how well we've structured our paid staff and teens that assist us on Sundays, and that's what's made this program thrive. And because it honors their efforts and keeps them from burning out while giving the kids consistent leaders in the programs that they can build trusting relationships. I trust that you can offer the tools for their medicine bag and perspective on how we want them to walk in a spiritual, or you might see it as a moral path, and face the challenges that will come their way. And I know we will continue to offer our programs, and I have faith that you will endeavor to see all of what we are going through the variety of perspectives of our intergeneration, and especially the eyes of our children. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.